All right, if we start adding more buttons to this, boy, that's going to be a lot of create element and all that stuff. This is going to get pretty nasty pretty quickly. So how about we not do it that way anymore? It'd be really nice if we could just like make that button with actual HTML. So how about this? How about in our HTML, we make a list item the way we want all the list items to look. And then we just copy it every time that we add a new thing, replacing the parts that are different. How's that sound? Easier? I think it's easier. Let's give that a shot. Let's start with one of these the way we have them. All right, so I have an li with a span, another span, and a button. I'm going to select that li. I'm going to say copy outer HTML. So outer HTML will include the element itself, just to give me a starting point. So inside my UL here, okay, I'll put it, yeah, sure, inside my UL. I'll just paste an li. Now that's not formatted nicely at all. We can fix that real quick. So we want all of our spells to look something like that. And I just want to make a copy every time. So I want to use this li as a template, basically. So I'm going to give it a class of template. Nothing magic about that word, just a word I'm choosing. Because this is going to be my template for new spells. So what I want to do when I add a new one is not build one from scratch, but make a copy of this and change the parts that should be different. Render item, man, render item's getting nasty. Okay. Starting from the beginning. Instead of creating the li, let's make a copy of that thing. So let's get that thing from the page. So that is document.querySelector. It's something with a class of spell and a class of template. So if I don't put any spaces in there, that's only going to match an element that has both classes. What does it do if I put a space in between the two? Looks for something with a class of template inside something with a class of spell. This will look for something with both. Okay, so that gets me that. Then wouldn't you know it, there's a function called cloneNode that just makes a copy of the darn thing. Now I'm going to do this every time. So instead of grabbing that every single time, I think I'm going to grab it once. Up in init. How about we do this dot template equals document.querySelector spell template. Then I'll just say this dot template dot clone node. And I'll say const item is that. Const item equals this dot template dot clone node. It just makes a copy of it. It takes that DOM element and makes a copy of it. And it doesn't put it on the page yet. You just have it as a JavaScript object. Let's experiment with it. All right, so I've got an li here. it's $0 now because I've selected it on the Elements tab. So let's say item equals $0.0.cloneNode. I have another li. It looks like there's nothing in it, though. That's not much of a clone, is it? Betrayed. Node clone node. Returns a duplicate of the node on which this method was called. There's an optional argument called deep if the children of the node should also be cloned, or false to clone only the specified node. So if I want to copy the children, I need to pass true. Now it's a full copy. That's what we want. Now what do we want to do? For each of our properties, I want to find the span with that class name, basically, and set its text content. Right? So I still want to get this array of all the properties. But then I don't have to create the spans from scratch. They're already there. Oh, yeah, we wanted to add the spell class to this item, right? We'll do that. Oh, no, it's already there. Don't need to do that anymore, right? Yeah, we're making this easy by doing it in the HTML. Don't need to do that. Don't need to do this. And I don't think we need to call render property ever again. So it seems like we need to do something with this, though. So what is it we need to do? We don't need to append them anymore. But so far, everyone I copy is going to have the same spell name and same level as the template, right? And that's not what we want. What do we want it to do instead? We want it to change the text content of those things, right? So, okay, if we loop over all the properties, let's say properties.forEach, and we'll have a little arrow function here. We know each property is going to be passed in as an argument, right? Pro tip, I think we talked about this yesterday. Arrow functions, if you only have one argument, you can omit the parentheses. Did we mention that? Okay. So what do we want to do for each of those? We need to find the span with that class name and change its text content, right? So if prop is the string name, I want to search within this item for something with name as the class, right? Because that's how the HTML is set up. It'll be a span with a class of name. We've used document.querySelector. But you can also call querySelector on any DOM element, and it will search only within that element. So we could say item.querySelector. Bless you. And look for something with a class of whatever prop is. So it's going to do this for every property it found. So it's going to do it for name, it's going to do it for level. So we could use querySelector and look for dot whatever prop is. Make sense? Sure. So what we're doing on this line, we have this. So yeah, let's start from the beginning, kind of. All right. So we filled out the form. We submitted the form. We've built an object that contains the data from the form, right? So we've got this spell object that has a name and a level. So instead of building our list item from scratch, now we're going to copy this list item. And then we're going to change the details that are specific to this spell. So what are those? That'd be the text fireball, the title here, and the level, right? So we need to change those things. Because we're making a copy of this one, but we don't want it to actually say fireball necessarily. In fact, this should probably just be blank. So we'll make it blank before we actually do this for real.
So essentially we're taking something that's already there.
Making a copy and then changing the details.
Okay, but what if there's something not there yet?
What do you mean? Well, so like all the details, like fireball and 3, like we're going to put those in.
Yeah, but what if there's nothing on the list already? Are we taking it off of what's already there, or?
No, we're just putting this dummy one in there and making a copy of it. So it won't really be there. We're going to hide this.
Oh, that's going to be hidden.
Yeah.
So when you create a new one, you take that, copy it.
Yes, exactly. And change it to actually match.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Now I get it.
Yeah. So for every property that this spell has, which right now is just name and level, but we could put more things on it. For every one of those things, we're going to have to change something about the copy, right? So that's what we're doing. We're getting a list of all those fields, which right now is just name and level. And then for each of those, we're going to do something. So it's the something that we're doing right now. So I've got the current property, which is either name or level, saved to a string that I've named. We could spell it out, property. Why not? Whatever. Doesn't matter. And what do I know that I want to change? I want to change this span, right? Or I want to change this span. But I know I want to change an element that has a class that is the same as that string I've got. So I've either got the string name or I've got the string level. And I need to find, I know that the element I need to change is going to have that same value as its class. So I can search for that by class name by saying .name or .level. So that's what I'm doing here. But instead of using document query selector, which is going to look on the whole page, and there's going to be potentially lots of those, right? If I have 5 spells and I look for the class name, there's going to be 5 matches, or 6 counting the template. But if I look just inside this item, there's only going to be 1. So you can use query selector on any existing node instead of the entire document, and it works. So this should find us the span that we want to change. So this is the element we want to change. So I'll set its text content to what? Who knows what I want to write there?
The name that you took in from the form.
The name that I took in from the form. How do I know what that is? What do I actually type? Who's saying that? Bill? Is that you? Yeah, what do you say? So spells has all of our values in it, right? I can't just say spells dot property because that will actually look for a property called the string property, right? So instead of a dot, I have to use, what's the other way to get object properties? Square brackets, right? So spells, square bracket, property. Remember, property is either going to be name or level. Spells, square bracket, name is going to get me the name. Spells, square bracket, level is going to get me the level. Does that make sense? At least a little bit. Don't feel too bad. This is definitely fairly advanced. Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you start over a little louder? So you can use dot if you actually know which property you're going for. If you have the name of the property in a variable, though, you have to use square brackets because what the dot does is it treats this as a quoted string, basically. It's going to look for a key that's actually named property. it's not going to treat this as the variable property. It's going to treat this as the string property. You know what I mean? So if you put it in square brackets, that's the variable property. So it's really name or level, right? So with dot, you have to have the actual literal name of the property. So we want to do that. And we also need to change the title, I think, right? So el.setAttribute. The attribute we want to set is title, and we want to give it that same value. Replace the appropriate values in each span. As for the delete button, we don't need to create it either, right? It's already there. How do we make it work? For right now, let's just forget about the delete button.
What command did you do to do that?
Oh, yeah. To delete and undelete lines, command / or control /. Just highlight the lines. Notice you don't have to highlight the entire line. If you want to do the current line, you don't have to select, just wherever your cursor is. Will do. To indent and outdent, command or control, right bracket, left bracket. So let's not worry about making the delete button work. Let's just see if this thing works. So I've got Fireball on there all the time, right? Let's enter another one. Let's actually type something in. Mimic level 5. Okay, it did make a clone, but it didn't do the right thing after that. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Here's our new LI. Still says spell and template. I've got span class name, title equals undefined. Title equals undefined. So that's no good. So what did we do wrong? I put spells here. I meant spell. See that? Spell is my object. Spells isn't a thing. I wanted spell. There it is. Seems right. Let's inspect it. Class equals name, title equals telepathy, contents telepathy, class equals level, title equals 1, value in here equals 1. Seemed to do it. I bet my delete buttons don't work. Yep. Yeah.
I was going to say, so the array doesn't have telepathy right now.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
The array only has telepathy right now?
Yeah. App dot spells. Yep.
How did we get it to display that on the screen if the clone wasn't on the screen?
We still, so I did all this inside render item. So render item is still returning the item at the end. It's returning the clone, and handle submit is then still appending that to the list.
Okay.
So I left that part in. It's just we're not building it from scratch. We're making a copy. But we need to fix the delete button. So we don't need to create it anymore. But we do need to add the event listener. We don't need to add the class delete. It's already there. We don't need to set the text content delete. It's already there. But we do need to add an event listener. So we should get the button from the page, from the copy, that is. So instead of document.createElement button, What if we used query selector again to look just within this one list item? Item.querySelector. What should we look for? I think it had a class of delete, right? If you want to be explicit, say button.delete. We don't need to append it. It's already there. So I think I'm not going to bother saving it to a variable. I'm going to do this. So item.querySelector button delete, that will return the delete button. Then I'll call add event listener on the delete button and do the event listener, which should be the same as it was before. Again, I don't need to append it. It's already in the item, right? We're just finding it, but it's already there because we're, again, working with a copy of that template element that we made. Does this work before we copy it too much? Mimic. Well, fine. Add another one. Delete the middle one. Okay, it went away. What about our array? App.spells. Okay, I'm down to just the one. So our delete button works again. And notice we're no longer leaving quite enough room for the delete button when we truncate things. I know there was at least one more thing I wanted to do. Oh, yeah. So we're still leaving this template one there, right? So first of all, we just made a copy of Fireball. It shouldn't say Fireball. It shouldn't say anything. Right? That's all just... That was all just there temporarily. But it'll still be there, right? With the delete button. So we want to hide it all together. It has a class of template. So how about we say anything with a class of template? We hide. Who knows how to hide things with CSS? Close. So that's a combination of two ways to do it. There's two ways. Display none and visibility hidden. The difference, visibility hidden still leaves room for it. We don't want it to leave room for it, right? We want it to just not be there at all. So we say display none. But it is still in the DOM. Query selector will still find it. So we can still make a copy of it. So let's try that. Nothing happened. It appears. But if we look, hey, there it is. But it has a class of template too, doesn't it? We only want template on the original. So as soon as we make the copy, class list remove template. So our copies should not have template on it. That's just for the original. Make sense? Try this again. Yay. It's bothering me, as you might guess, that my cursor is staying in level. Every time I add a new one, I want the cursor to go back to spell name. It's got autofocus on it, but not if there's more than one field. That only helps me when the page first loads. Does that bother you too? That is not how we would actually want this to work. So we should take just a moment and fix that. So at the end of handle submit, we know f.spellname is that field, right? f.spellname.value is what we typed in it. f.spellname is the actual input. So we could say f.spellname.focus. I think we learned about focus the other day. Let's see about that. Refresh, fireball, telepathy. Oh yeah, that feels good. Deleting like crazy. Now these things are not quite lined up anymore. So let's see here. Maybe we have max width 80%. Maybe it should just be 80% no matter what. Would that help? Not really. Oh yeah, okay, that helps. Maybe 80% is too much now that we've got the delete button there. I don't know. Maybe it should be 75%. But it's all going to depend on how wide the window is. Maybe at the very least, our level should have some padding around it, so there's a little space to the left and right. How about that? Padding. Anybody know the shorthand for padding? So you could say padding top, padding right, padding left, etc. Or you could specify it all at once.
You can like have like all four values. It starts from top, and I think it goes right, then bottom.
Yeah. Top, right, bottom, left. If you want the top and bottom to be the same, and the left and right to be the same, you could just set top and right. So I could say 0 top and bottom. Let's put about the space of one character to the left and right. That's maybe a little bigger than I need. So let's go 0.25. That'll leave some space. So that's padding 0.25 em. So make sure I actually put that in my style sheet. So dot level. I'm going to add some padding. And on spell name, I put width 80%, not max width. Isn't that what I did? Yeah, now no matter how short or long they are, it looks pretty decent. What do you think, Matt? All right, so create new list items as copies of a template. If we start adding more buttons and stuff, it's just going to be a lot easier to do that in HTML than it is to do more create element every single time.